Welcome, everyone, to Touching Base. I'm your host, Eric Arnold. Today, I'm going to be joined by my friends, Andy Enck, Andrew Knoll, and Joe Olson. Guys, how you doing tonight?
Not too bad.
Thanks.
Yeah, doing really well. This is our 13th episode. And as always, during the middle of the week, we like to get together, share a beer, and just kind of catch up on sports. So the very important question we always ask, what are we drinking tonight? Andy, what do you got?
I got a blood orange blonde from Mully's. Loving it. Little bitterness, not too much. Really good.
Mr. Knoll, how about you?
I have double barreling on the Land Shark today. I have two varieties.
Look at you.
I have the glass bottle left over from dinner, and then I have my can in the reserve here.
Yeah, absolutely. The backup. Joe, what are we doing tonight?
I'm just honoring the beginning of June by busting out their classic Corona.
Andy Enck, I got to tell you, great minds think alike, and we got lucky because
Nice.
I myself am also drinking a Mully's. Still working into those drinks they sent us over. I did this last week. It is so good. I want to do it again, and hopefully I'll probably have another one after we hang up this conversation. But more importantly, right now, I want to ask you guys. There's been a lot going on this week, but the biggest topic that I've seen in I want to get your take is fans. We have been talking about fans coming back into the stadium, and I got to tell you, they've been acting kind of like jerks like since their return. It's like they don't know how to handle it. Recently, we've seen things, especially in the DC area. We saw a guy run out naked at the Nats game, onto the tarp. As funny as it may be, like it's probably frowned upon. We saw in Philadelphia, Mr. Westbrook got popcorn dumped on him. Again, at the Wizards game, we had a guy jump onto the court before he got just absolutely, blitzed by the security guard. Other basketball players are saying things quickly. Got a drink thrown at him. Kyrie Irving got stuff thrown at him. There was a minor league baseball situation where a pitcher threw behind a batter, and a player or a guy from the stands ran out and tried to attack him. Before he kind of got intervened with by the teammates. But that one was probably the most dangerous of them, as he kind of went out there and actually tried to attack the pitcher. So I'm asking you guys, it's just should we be concerned about this? Is this something that's always been happening? How do you guys feel about this stuff?
I think it's an instant wake-up call that stadiums and arenas out there need to take a look at the posture of security that they've had for their players and for everybody that's involved with the actually production of the event. There's been, a year plus of having little or no fans. And now all of a sudden there are full stadiums, and perhaps the security is a little bit relaxed, or they're not as on edge as they might have been if they had been in a regular routine of seeing full stadiums with raucous fans the whole time.
Security's not in mid-season form right now.
Right. Maybe they're not broken into their midseason form yet, and they're still warming up. I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, I think that it's just going to be a wake-up call, and all professional sports and college sports are going to be taking a look at how can we make these players safer, because they're what bring the fans to the stands in the first place.
I think we touched on it before the pre-show about some of these players are making tons of money and people aren't liking it necessarily. I think there is kind of this growing bitterness in the fan that thinks, well, he makes $30 million a year, so I should be able to accost him however I feel necessary. And I think that is kind of growing into this kind of, I would say, borderline epidemic at this point. We've had the past month probably more of those negative fan interactions than the previous several seasons, I would say. And I think it's something that really needs to be nipped in the bud. Not to say we need to create a whole separate subsection of laws based on venues and severity of the crime or whatever, but I just think it's something that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, I'm gonna tie a couple of both of those things together. I think there's a little bit of cabin fever, right? Like we said, fans haven't been at games in a while. They haven't really been anything in a while, so there is a little bit of getting a little lubed up, as Tom Brady would say, and running out and just kind of acting a fool, right? And I think in a lot of those cases, right, like some jackass that's had too many Tito's it's not a safety concern, right? There are some concerns, but when you talk about players getting stuff thrown at each other on themselves, like the Westbrook, like some of the other ones that you mentioned, I think that's a little bit different, and we have to look at that a little bit differently. And I think to bring back Andy's point, I think some of it is like the depravity of like the human condition that seems to be escalating. And like maybe that's severe, but it just seems like just people are just nuts anymore. And yeah, you can blame the
Yeah,
pandemic.
it's amateur hour. I mean,
yeah, it's just there's just
and it's not just, I was thinking it's not just, one in particular sport. And I didn't think about this until just now, but even I think it was last week's episode, we talked about, either post our conversation, but I know that we were talking about the fans rushing the golf course. And people, the other golfers not, caring for that. We see it in college sports all the time, when the fans rush the field, but we've never really had that major incident. But I don't know, there's something about this that seems like we're just inching closer to a real threat happening.
So I'm going to be the old man that yells at cloud for this one, but
Sure.
I see some connection. And maybe, again, this is because of the field I've been. I'm exposed to the internet and social media and all this stuff like all day long. Like it's literally my profession. I think we're getting like the further advanced we get like socially and technologically and, getting involved in all of these online networking and personas and everything, the less real the actual reality seems and might feel to some folks. So you have some of these things where I'm going to just throw popcorn at Russell Westbrook because I did it in Fortnite or, whatever other stupid thing it is. Or, Joe, I don't know if you can help me out with the name. There's a player from Edmonton that's, First Nation Indigenous up in Canada. And, fans like in the masses just coming out and hurling just, absolute horrific, atrocious language. It's just like
throwing language and throwing popcorn and throwing.
No, I agree, but it's just
three
like
different things,
But it's just my point is like these are things that in my wildest imaginations, like I couldn't even imagine thinking, let alone saying. And these people are happy to say it out loud or throw a popcorn or jump on the court, whatever it is. It's just like I think there's a we're. I'm not going to be
desensitized. Are we desensitized to the whole thing?
Say it again.
I'm sorry, but I interrupted you. Are we just being desensitized to?
I think people are desensitizing themselves in a sense.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit. Like, are the punishments fitting of the crimes? Is there a crime? I mean, a lot of these guys are getting kicked out and banned for life, never coming to the stadium. I think people think it's worth it, or they're not thinking at all. There's drinking too much, or there's a hidden agenda because now. I mean, not that I would do it for, our podcast, but like if I wore a, touching base t-shirt and ran out and just decided to smack Russell Westbrook, in next, playoff game, do you know how much money, like in advertising, we would get out of that? Now, I would be absolutely.
Well, we would have a very nice memorial episode for you the week after.
I'll attend your funeral. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Russ ain't got nothing on me, he's. Sorry, I just had a quick flashback of like what that would be like and just how quickly my night would end. but
it's like the Velociraptors yelling at the T-Rex at the end of the first Jurassic Park. And it's that's cute, but no.
Yeah, I would go out. That's a great reference, by the way. Yeah, I would go out there, hop on his back, take my first swing, and then I would just get thrown right directly into the side of the stadium. But I bet it makes Sports Center. I bet it hits the grams. I bet it hits Twitter, and I bet people would know who we were at least for a week. And it just seems like people are sort of okay with that. Andy?
Now another caveat here that we haven't really touched on, but to kind of say the condition of the fan these days is I've noticed a lot of fan on fan negative interactions as well.
Was it the Tigers game where the guy got knocked out?
That was the San Diego Padres game. He got knocked to bleep out, and he got knocked out so bad, and he didn't press charges because he said he deserved it. So, I mean, that says a lot about the condition of the fan.
I kind of respect that. There's a small part of it because from what I remember reading about that, he also deserved it. Some guy just finally had enough.
I just want to talk about this is perhaps, we're all in our mid to late 30s here on this show, and think about when we were 15 years old, if some of this stuff was happening when we watched baseball and basketball games, it would be absolutely absurd, right? And it's almost like because there's been enough examples of it over the past couple of years, and especially, this last year, it's almost like a renormalization of sorts that people see it more and more. And to Andrew's point, they have access to the footage of these events more and more and more easily, that they have easier access to get these ideas in their head. Like, man, I could get my idea out there if I streaked onto the court, or if I threw a bag of popcorn at Russell Westbrook. And because they happen more and more, it's less and less of an anomaly, and it's just becoming more.
It's
man,
normal.
yeah, it's more normal. It's renormalization.
Yeah, but I'm just remembering also, it's a million years ago, but Ron Artest, like, or whatever he's known as these days.
Hello, world peace.
Maybe running up 10 rows in Madison Square Garden trying to swing at somebody. And
Well, that
it's
was at the Palace. That was the Mouse at the
That
Palace.
was the Palace, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, but he went into the stands and because he just lost his mind because the guy threw popcorn at him or something like that, right?
Yeah, my point was we talked about how we haven't seen this, and it's probably more frequent now than it was then, but it's not like we were absent of these kinds of incidents either.
We weren't. I mean, and we kind of talked about this. There was things like Morgana, the kissing bandit, even before, years ago. But that was kind of more of like a sideshow. And she wasn't really hurting anyone. If something like that happened today, I'm sure there would probably be a little bit more, people offended by it. But at the same time, I feel like, and I can't tell if it's a correlation between my age or if it's something that's always been happening and we just haven't really paid attention to, or if it's just getting closer and closer and closer. And I tend to believe that's what it is. I think people are just getting a little bit more brave. They're starting to feel more normal. They're starting to feel like these guys aren't these icons maybe that they thought they were, because they feel too comfortable going out there. But if someone came into our work, we were all teachers at one point. If somebody came into our classroom and threw popcorn on us, that person would be arrested. They wouldn't just be kicked out of school. I mean, and I understand it's different. It's around kids. This is a sporting event. It's supposed to be kind of more entertainment. But there's something about this that just that scares me, if I'm being quite honest with you. I am worried. Nobody's going to the Orioles games right now, but if somebody ran out to the field and just punched one of the Orioles pitchers, because they just felt like it. They wanted to get on ESPN. I'm legit scared. Because I see it happening in our lifetime. And so I guess my question to you guys now is so what do we do? If that's true, how do you stop it? How do we get better about this?
My first response would just be the security personnel need to look at how they can enforce whatever punishments they're going to dish out, right? We talked about lifetime bans and everything. How enforceable is that? If I get a lifetime ban from, Nats Park in DC.
But then I buy you a ticket.
And then you buy me a ticket and it doesn't say my name on it. Are they using facial recognition to make sure that
no way.
Right. How enforceable are these things? And so, you ask, what do we do? I think that it has to be more prevention than reaction. The punishments aren't gonna stop people from doing these crazy things, because I just don't think it's enforceable on a mass scale.
To add to Joe's point about that, I can't remember his name, but there's a guy that his sport is trying to get in the Super Bowl every year without a ticket.
Oh yeah.
If he can do that, how are you going to enforce any kind of lifetime ban when there's 50 or more thousand people coming to this event?
I am going to pull this out of absolutely nowhere because I don't have enough context for it, but there's I've seen college basketball games where the benches appear to be down in a moat and the players have to come up on the floor. And I wonder if something
know where that's at? That's old Minnesota. That's the barn.
That's the barn, Williams Arena in Minneapolis. Yeah.
Well, there you go. If you don't introduce some sort of physical pseudo barrier,
you want a moat?
Well, I didn't say put crocodiles in water and shit in there. I just
I think it should be a bog of eternal stench.
Yeah.
Have you been around those players? There's an eternal stench, right? I think if some sort of pseudo physical, even if it's you raise the court, or we said earlier in the pregame about hockey has boards and giant sheets of plexiglass. I'm not saying you need to put boards up around the NBA. That doesn't sound like a good plan. But something where you can get a little bit more different distance between Jack Nicholson and LeBron, for instance.
You're gonna build a wall and you're gonna have the fans pay for it. Sorry,
you're an office guy. Go away.
sorry, Andy. Go ahead.
I think we talked a little bit about in the pre-show about baseball being kind of a more friendly venue for that. And just from Andrew's point, they have the dugout. The dugout is kind of a structure that keeps them kind of pseudo-separated from the fans. Not to say we need to have a cement dugout at an NBA game, but I think that's a good point of having some sort of instituted physical barrier that can at least protect the players while they're not in the game.
I hate it so much because it really does take away from the fan experience. But I feel like like you said, an old man, like, this is why we can't have nice things. If you're going to act like this, then we have to
the other choice is we stop selling beer after the second inning. Like, which of these things would you want less?
Well, then I've attended my last baseball game.
Yeah. That was not a suggestion by any stretch.
You might as well run out on the field and make it worth it.
The only way people can tolerate Oriole games is because they sell beer there.
yeah. This guy right here. Yeah, Joe, go ahead.
Now, I was just going to say that I don't know what kind of physical barrier they could put up that anybody would be a fan of in basketball, but outside of some clear plexiglass, I just think basketball, one of the best things about it is that you can sit on the floor and be right next to the players. I mean, any sort of physical barrier would just be taking away from the experience. And I think there'd be as much bitching about that as there would be about anything else.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, I think imagine the outrage they had a couple years ago when they started putting nets all the way down each foul line on baseball games. People were outraged by that, and that was for their protection from a 110-mile-an-hour foul ball coming at them. I can't imagine they'd be any happier about having hide the players in an NBA game or somewhere else. It just the fans are going to complain, but they're not do anything to not have to have those kind of things put in place.
Yeah, but I go back to it. I mean, like, it sucked, but like, we earned that. That happened because people were acting like idiots. Like you said, I mean, do we take away the alcohol? Probably not, because that's a money issue. But I'm actually a little surprised the players haven't complained more than what they have, because, like I said, it's getting to that point. Now, there's part of me that says, fine, because could you imagine if that guy got out in the Wizards game and Dwight Howard, just absolutely just destroys him with a right cross?
Wait, Howard's still playing?
What's that? That guy's still playing. He's playing for the number one team in the league right now.
He's got to beat Tim Duncan in age by now.
Well, the thing is, like, when Tim Duncan gets older, so does he. Like, and so he'll never.
But I'm saying, like, in terms of the years played, right? Like, didn't Duncan, like, he have to defer his salary because his AARP money was coming in?
yeah. He had to wait a few years in coaching. He's a Hall of Famer. I don't know if you saw that, but that was a recent thing.
To add to your point about coming up against a big player, I'm sure you guys have seen the picture where The Rock is standing next to Shaq and I think it was Charles Barkley. The Rock is a huge guy who works out a lot. He lifts things up and he puts them down for a living. Right. And then he's standing next to Shaq and Charles Barkley. He looks like one of us. It's crazy how big these guys are.
Yeah. I'm sure he goes home and says, you know what? I look like those guys from Touching Base. Like, if I play my parts right, I don't know what the right answer is. Part of me, I think, Joe, you hit on the head as far as like prevention. But there's got to be something more. I'm legit worried because you talked about the guy sneaking to the stadium, every year with the Super Bowl. At what point do you start bringing stuff with you? Do you bring a knife? Do you bring a gun? Do you bring a weapon of some sort? I don't know, Tanya Harding, one of the players.
They have those very thorough searches.
Yeah. That impenetrable Fort Knox like defense as you go into the stadium. It's very difficult to crack that code. Andy?
Not to make a nuclear comparison, but I remember a time when I could wear my belt and shoes trying to get on an airplane. So, I mean, and that's totally a nuclear option, but that's been created by somebody not following the rules. So, I mean, we should develop some sort of credit score you can have.
Not following the rules. That's a little bit more than that, but yeah.
That's how it started, though.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and people were upset about that, but they understand it's just part of the process now. So do we try to do something before that happens? I don't know, but I hopefully something gets figured out. Another thing I want to talk to you guys about is actually in the tennis world, it's beginning a lot of attention, is Naomi Osaka, number 2 ranked tennis player in the world for women's singles, 4-time Grand Slam winner. She came out and withdrew from the French Open, which I know you guys were planning on watching anyway. But the bigger issue was she was talking about her mental health. Essentially, she was asked to do some press, go out there and take some interviews. She said no, that, she just wasn't feeling it. She's come out and said that she battles depression. She has a hard time, already going to these events anyway. There's a lot of pressure, specifically with Grand Slams. And so she said no, she didn't want to do it. They fined her $15,000. And she said, okay, well, then I am out. And, congratulations, you got your press that you wanted, which was a great move. It's been creating a lot of attention. A lot of people are, hopping on board, of course, like politicians and stuff, but other players are coming out and congratulating her and saying, thank you for bringing some attention to this. There are other people who are saying that, no, like, this is part of the obligation. This is part of the, the job that you signed up for. If you're supposed to be a part of it, be a part of it. I wanted to get your guys' take on it now. And before we get this, I mean, none of us here are against mental health, so let me just, say that, like, realistically, none of us, we're all for the idea of mental health. But I think what I'm asking you is, how do you feel about this situation? Did it play out the right way? Are you, just kind of your just initial thoughts.
I'll go and just say that, this is, I think there's going to be they won't be as loud, but there's a population out there that is not going to really be supporting what she did here. And that, like you said at the beginning of this, I've got total respect for anything that is a mental health issue and all of that stuff. But, these athletes are getting paid a lot of money to participate in an event and in a sport, and this is part of that event. And so if you are going to enjoy the fruits of that labor, which is in her case especially millions of dollars, I think that there are people out there that will say, well, that's what you need to do if you would like to enjoy those privileges.
Yeah, movie stars are sometimes told you don't get paid to make a movie, you get paid to promote, and to make sure that your movie is, getting all the attention dollars it seeks. I don't know if it correlates the same way with athletes, but it kind of seems like that because it's still an entertainment business. But Andrew?
Yeah, just to echo and like hammer home what you brought up on the top is no one's here to discredit or disbelieve or not accept anybody with mental health issues, not even in the slightest bit, right? Like, probably one of our biggest threats as a society right now is untreated and unrecognized mental health issues. So kudos to Naomi, and kudos to those who are in a position to be able to stand up for those things. However, I think there's also, and I'm not here to say this is what Naomi Osaka did.
Put it out, you got it. You got it.
People wake up in the morning looking for something to be a victim of.
Do you think that's what she's doing?
No, I don't. I just think, like, at some point, we touched on this a little bit earlier, right? At some point, like, us as everybody having either currently touching or having touched, like, the public school system and been a part of that, at some point, like, we have to move past excuses and, like, find a way to persevere, improvise, adapt, and overcome, right? Like, and, again, like, it's easier for me. Like, I'm fortunate enough that I generally don't deal too much with those mental health issues. There's some on my periphery and there's some things I deal with personally.
You and I have known each other for a long time. Like, and I think I can say this, I know that you have your own, I don't want to say like issues, I mean, you call them mental health, but nobody here in this room, we're all good friends. We're all pretty honest people with each other.
Sure.
We all struggle with our own battles.
But it's, it's about finding mechanisms to cope. It's about seeking out help and finding mechanisms to cope and finding a way to persevere to get the job done in a sense. And, I'm sure somebody else could mention, but, like, take your lumps. If they're going to find you, just take your fine. And if you're not going to do it, and, whatever it comes, you just have to be willing to accept it. And I don't think, there's reasonable expectations on both sides. Like, the French Open has a reasonable expectation that you're going to show up and promote, whatever else the tournament, bring eyes to their tournament. You have a reasonable expectation that, they're going to protect your mental health, whatever it is. But, like, when these things kind of don't coalesce the way they should be, like, there's going to be consequences. They can't make exceptions for you.
I don't necessarily have a problem with it. Like, in any capacity. If she feels like she wasn't ready to play or wasn't ready to do this conference, and she says, okay, well, I'm not going to go. And they say, okay, well, then we're going to fine you, because that's kind of, part of the expectation. I mean, like, they can't just make up a fine. Like, there's got to be something contractually that says you're going to be there. And she, like you said, it's a reasonable expectation for her to go, promote it. Do I think it's better if they just said, you know what, we're going to waive it because you're the number 2 player in the world, like, and we'd rather have you in our tournament than not in our tournament. I think that probably could have, happened, but it didn't. And they said, no, we have to fine you. These are the rules. If we do it for you, we got to do it for everyone else.
Yeah, that's a hierarchy issue because do you tell, is it okay for her but not okay for number 10?
And sometimes it is in sports. I mean, like, quite frankly, if she's bringing in the money, I want her there. But part of me says, like, honestly, they did everything they could too. They're going to have they're still going to go on. They're still going to have somebody else, taking her spot. And she gets the time that she needs to clear her head. She's getting. I don't think she's doing this intentionally. I don't think that this is some situation where now she all of a sudden becomes the spokesperson for mental health, even though recently, she has been. That's what people have been, reaching out to her for, and I'm sure she's going to get some attention for this. But at the same time, like, I don't really have a problem. I do have some of the problem with people making fun of her, after it. I don't like some of these people coming out, like a Piers Morgan or somebody, coming out and bashing on her. I do think it's important that she gets it, but I really don't have a problem with a lot of the way it worked out. She needs the time. Take your time. If we're saying it's just like any other injury, then treat it like any other injury.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, Andy, we're talking all over you. I think that's it, right? I think that's a nice way to take it home, or at least from my perspective, my point of view. Take your personal choice, right, to not go to the press conference, to withdraw from the tournament, whatever. That's your right, but don't come off outraged about the French Open oppressing you. And
I don't think she has.
And I agree, and that's fine. But I think, like, to quell off the keyboard warriors, like that's what it is, right? You can't.
That's never going to happen. That's a whole separate issue. The internet warriors, are out there.
I can't be invited to that conversation, but like, yeah, you just can't have your cake and eat it too, kind of thing, right? Like, if you're gonna accept and praise her choice for stepping out and doing the right thing, that's fine, great, support that. Don't come back in here and blame French Open for oppressing her rights or whatever it is. I'm done on that. So sorry, Andy.
Very good. So I guess I was trying to just in my head, like, play devil's advocate, just to kind of like understand globally more what's going on in the situation on both sides. And I can't really find anything to agree with as far as this French Open. I mean, they are trying to enforce the rules that they have. And if this player who seems to have a legitimate concern, I think their worry is that's going to become an easy out for other athletes, and just say, I don't feel like doing it today, so I'm just going to say that I have a mental health issue.
Yeah,
and that way I
check that, right? I mean, like,
exactly. It's going to be one of those things, kind of a slippery slope where that's just an easy way to not have to do press or not have to do whatever. And we talked a little bit about pre-show is they're contractually obligated to do that. So it's part of the process to show up and pull a Marshawn Lynch, like we said, where I'm just here so I don't get fined. Answer every question like that. And you've done your part. Even though it sounds like you're being a total jerk, you've at least checked that box off so you don't get in trouble. But again, the mental health issue is an important issue now more than ever, because even our entire previous segment about the fan interactions is, I'm sure, making this mental health issue even more so important for these athletes.
And we've also talked about, just apparently, I never knew this, and I'm sure you guys may not have known either, but apparently she's been dealing with these issues all the way back to the Serena Williams racket smashing screaming match in 2018. And so it's kind of hard to have a hard and fast opinion about this, because we don't know exactly what she means by mental health or depression. There's an infinite number of layers that can go behind that mental health or depression and everything like that. And that's going to be a hard thing for anybody to form an opinion on too, is because there is an infinite number of problems out there in that arena. And so I think that it's hard to, kind of say this is this version of the problem, because it's really just a sliver of the infinite amount of problems that there could be. But at the end of the day, I'm always going to stand behind. I'm okay with not letting the tail wag the dog, right? If they've said the rules, then this is what the rules are. I'm okay with it. I feel bad for her if she's dealing with something. I hope that she finds the resources to cope. But I don't want to just instantly, without understanding all the facts, bash the tournament because they try to enforce the rules of their contract.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Joe. I think it's really been kind of as fair as possible, across the board. We really don't know about it. We're not mental health experts as much as we may claim to be, on here, but we don't know. And we all want her to do well and wish her nothing but the best. We only have a few minutes left. And so before we leave, I know that none of us care that much, but I do want to hear your opinion on it. Once again, we've got a exhibition boxing match happening this Sunday. So I'm not going to get a chance to talk to you guys before then. Floyd Mayweather is going to be fighting at 160 pounds against Logan Paul, who's going to weigh 190 pounds. And really what's going to be another spectacle. I don't think it's going to be the same, match that Askren and his brother had, Jake Paul. But it's a big fight. How much interest do you guys have into it?
I'll say a medium level, just because I'd like to see Floyd Mayweather get knocked out, because I don't like him as a person and his 50-0 record. I would like to see that go down.
No, the Paul guy said, actually, you're 51-0 because he used to beat your wife. Like said that in the press conference, which,
I'm annoyed at how hilarious that is.
Yeah, right. Not that any of that's funny, but the fact he called him out on it. Both guys are hated so much that I'm forced to like one of them, and that's a hard grab for me. I cannot believe, Joe, you're saying, you can't stand Floyd Mayweather. I really don't like the Paul brother, so there's part of me, it's like, you know what, I kind of want to watch because I want to see the Paul brother get knocked out. And that's really all it is. It's nothing more than that. Go ahead, Andy.
I think what I'm hoping and praying for, that say it's like a 5-round exhibition, something like that, 5 or 7 rounds probably.
Yeah.
I'm hoping whatever the last round is, all of a sudden you hear Conor McGregor, he runs in there with a chair, just knocks them both to bleep out just to be done with it. Because like Joe said, I want to see Mayweather get knocked out almost as much as I want to see Paul get knocked out. It's just, I'll watch it just because of that. But they're both, like you said, so hated. That's what's really driving what's the interest in this story.
Yeah.
Wouldn't Floyd Mayweather have been boxing when this Paul kid would have been in like middle school?
Yeah, probably. He's 40 or almost. 40.
He's 40. He's 44, and I believe Logan Paul is 26. So they are.
Yeah, quite that old. All right, I just
feel
like
Floyd 50-0 or 51-0, depending on who you ask, and the other one's 0-1. But this is also a giant payday, and it's an exhibition. Just kind of like, it's always come down to it. It's not that no one doubts that Floyd Mayweather is going to go down as a better boxer all time. It's the spectacle, it's the event, it's the possibility, it's the intrigue. So, and that's what I'm asking. Like, how much intrigue is there? Very minimal.
Then I won't give them the benefit of my view. Then, not that I would have anyway, but
the
for
money.
those reasons, like, I'm not playing your game. Like, I won't dance for you.
I'll tell you what, it may be an exhibition, but if Floyd Mayweather goes in there and gets his face punched in the first 10 seconds, then that will affect his legacy. I don't care if it's an expedition or not.
I think you're absolutely right. And it plays out. I don't think that's what's going to happen.
No, absolutely not.
Realistically, I don't think that's going to be the case at all. And I also saw the other brother signed up to fight against Tyron Woodley, later on this year, which I'm sure you guys are big Tyron Woodley fans, but he's a former UFC champion. And he was a big friend of Ben Askren, and a little bit better, more of a striker than Ben was. So he's looking to get his revenge. I'm more interested in that, if I'm being quite honest with you, than I am this one.
Really looking forward to Chad Ochocinco being on the card too. Very excited about that.
But you know what? Give it up for that guy, because he's done like rodeo bull riding. he played like professional soccer for like 9 games or something like that.
Did push-ups in his driveway?
Say it again.
Did push-ups in his driveway, or was that Terrell Owens?
No, that was T.O. That was your boy, Terrell Owens. Yeah, I know.
Quarterback.
Good on him. Though. I don't know. Like, I'm kind of probably going to root for him. Like, I feel myself. I'll probably root for Ochocinco. Although I can only imagine how obnoxious it would be afterwards. But either way, I'm rooting for him. He's going against some bare knuckle guy who I guess used to be like an NFL prospect, couldn't make it, went into bare knuckle brawling or something like that. Maxwell, I think his name, Brad Maxwell. I know your boy Brad Maxwell. You guys are all rooting for, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Gentlemen, we are running out of time. We've only got a few minutes. I want to just as always, throwing up to you guys. To wish you guys a great week this week. Go ahead and enjoy the rest of your beverage like I will. Thank you again to Mully's for throwing us a couple beers, especially the ones that Andrew and Joe can't get yet, because I can still drink those. So thank you guys. And you guys, as always, I hope you have a great week. See you next week.
Yeah.